Chapter 29, an account of the battles which took place between the Pharisees and Sadducees. Afterwards, evil arose between the Pharisees and Sadducees, and continued by the space of 6 years. And Alexander helped the Sadducees against the Pharisees, of whom there were slain within 6 years 50,000. Wherefore, between these two sects, the state of things was reduced to utter destruction, and their enmity was completely confirmed. So Alexander, having sent for the elder men of each sect, spake kindly to them, and advised a reconciliation. But they answered him, In truth, you, in our opinion, are worthy of death, for the abundance of innocent blood which you have shed. Wherefore let there be nothing between us but the sword. Then after this they began to show their enmity openly, sending messengers to Demetrius, the king of Macedon, that he should come to them with an army, promising that they would assist him against Alexander and his party, and would reduce the Hebrews to submission to the Macedonians. And Demetrius marched to them with a large army, which also was told to Alexander, who sent a person to hire 6,000 Macedonians, whom joining to his own forces he advanced against Demetrius. Many also of the Jews, Pharisees, went over to Demetrius, and Demetrius sent secretly persons to those Macedonians who were with Alexander, to seduce them from him, but they hearkened not unto him. Alexander also sent secretly men to the Jews, who were with Demetrius, to turn them to his side, but neither did these do as he would have them. But Alexander and Demetrius met, and fought a battle, in which all Alexander's men fell, and he escaped alone into the land of Judah. But when his men heard it, whispered that he had escaped in safety, and found out the place where he was, there assembled unto him about 6,000 men of the bravest of the sons of Israel, and many of those who had revolted to Demetrius joined themselves to him. Afterward men flocked to him from every side, and he returned to give battle to Demetrius with a numerous force, and put him to flight, and Demetrius returned into his own country. And Alexander marched against him to Antioch, and besieged it 3 years, and when Demetrius came out to fight, Alexander conquered him and slew him. And he departed from the city, and returned to Jerusalem to his citizens, who magnified him, honoring and praising him for having defeated his enemies. And the Jews agreed to submit to him, and his heart was at rest. And he sent his armies against all his enemies, whom he put to flight, and gained the victory over them. He also gained possession of the mountains of Sarah, and the country of Ammon and Moab, and the country of the Philistines, and all the parts which were in the hands of the Arabians who fought with him, even to the bounds of the desert. And the affairs of his kingdom were ruled aright, and he placed his people and his country in a state of safety. Chapter 30, the account of the death of Alexander, the son of Hyrcanus. Afterward King Alexander fell sick with a quartan fever for 3 whole years. But when the governor of a city named Ragaba revolted from him, he led thither a powerful army, taking with him his wife and family, and besieged the city. But when it was on the point of being taken, his disease increased and his strength declined, and his wife, who was named Alexandra, lost all hope of his recovery, who going up to him said, You know now what difference there are between you and the Pharisees, and your 2 sons are little boys, and I am a woman, and together we shall not be able to resist them. What advice, therefore, do you give to me and them? He said to her, My advice is that you persevere against the city till it be taken, which will be shortly. And when it shall have been won, establish its government according as the other cities have been established. But towards all these people pretend that I am sick, and whatever you do, pretend you do it at my suggestion, and reveal my death to those servants on whom you can depend. And when you shall have finished these matters, go into the city of the holy house, having previously dried and embalmed my body with spices, and fill the place where I lie with many perfumes, that no unpleasant smell may proceed from me. And when the affairs of the country are settled, go thence, and roll me up in abundance of perfumes, and carry me into the place as if sick. And when I am there, send for the principal men of the Pharisees, and when they come, honor them, and speak good words to them. Then say, Alexander is already dead, and behold, I give him up to you. Do with him whatever seems good to you, and I from henceforth will behave to you as you shall please. For if you do this, I know very well that they will do nothing to me and you, except that which is good. And the people will follow them, and your affairs will be ordered aright after my death, and you will reign securely until your 2 sons be grown up. After this Alexander died, and his wife concealed his death. And when the city was taken, she returned to Jerusalem. And having sent for the chief men of the Pharisees, she addressed them as Alexander had advised her. To whom they replied that Alexander had been their king, and they had been his people. And they spoke to her with all affection, and promised to place her at the head of the government. Then they went out and collected men, and taking Alexander's body, they carried it forth magnificently to its burial. And they sent for men to appoint Alexandra queen, with whose concurrence she was so appointed. And the years of Alexander's reign were 27. Chapter 31. The history of Queen Alexandra. Now while Alexandra reigned, she called to her the chief men of the Pharisees, and commanded them to write to all those of their sect who had fled into Egypt and other parts, in the days of Hyrcanus and of Alexander, that they should return into the land of Judah. And she showed them her favorable inclination towards them, and did not oppose herself to their rights, nor forbid their ceremonies, as Alexander and Hyrcanus had forbidden them. She also released all of them who were detained in prison. And they came together from every quarter, and the Sadducees forbare offering them any violence. And their affairs were well ordered, and their condition became improved by the removal of quarrels. But when Hyrcanus and Aristobulus, the 2 sons of Alexander, grew up, the queen made Hyrcanus high priest, for he was meek, mild, and honest. But Aristobulus she made general of the army, for he was stout, brave, and high-spirited. She also gave to him the army of the Sadducees, but she did not think it meet to appoint him king, as he was still a boy. Moreover, she sent to all those who paid tribute to Alexander, and took their king's sons, whom she detained near her as hostages, and they continued uninterrupted in their obedience to her, paying tribute every year. And she walked uprightly with her people, distributing justice, and commanding her people to do the same. Wherefore there was a lasting peace between the parties, and she gained their goodwill. Chapter 32. An account of the things which were done to the Sadducees by the Pharisees in the time of Alexandra. There was among the Sadducees a chief man who had been promoted by Alexander, named Diogenes, who formerly had induced him to slay 800 men of the Pharisees. Therefore the leaders of the Pharisees came to Alexandra, and reminded her of what Diogenes had done, asking her leave to slay him, which she gave, and they having it, slew many Sadducees together with him. Which the Sadducees, taking very much to heart, went to Aristobulus, and taking him with them, went to the queen, and said to her, You are aware what terrible and heavy things we have undergone, and the many wars and battles which we have fought, in aid of Alexander and his father Hyrcanus. Wherefore it was not meet to trample on our rights, and to lift up the hand of our enemies over us, and to lower our dignities. For a matter of this kind will not be hidden from Hyrcanus and other of your enemies, who have experienced our bravery, and have not been able to resist us, and their hearts have been filled with the fear of us. When therefore they shall perceive what you have done to us, they will imagine that our hearts are devising plans against you, of which, when they shall be certified, trust that they will play false toward you. Nor will we endure to be killed by the Pharisees like sheep. Therefore, either restrain their malice from us, or allow us to go from the city into some of the towns of Judah. And she said to them, Do this, and their annoyance to you may be prevented. And the Sadducees went forth of the city, and their chiefs departed with the men of war who adhered to them, and went with their cattle and those of the towns of Judah which they had selected, and dwelt in them. And there were joined to them those who were devoted to virtue, i.e., the Hasdanim.